the kickoff, we had Sheamus versus Damien Sandow. These two have been kind of goading each other for the last couple weeks in a series of challenges, and finally they could get their hands on each other. We'll kick off with Jeff here.
This match I was really excited to see because I was hoping Damien Sandow was going to get the win on this. Because, like you said, they've been going back and forth the past couple weeks on SmackDown and Main Event, and was finally going to get the payoff. This was a physical match, and Damien really took it to Sheamus in a way that not very many people get to take it to Sheamus. He had him down and made it look like Sheamus could possibly lose this match. But out of nowhere, Sheamus hit that brogue kick, and Sheamus picked up the win.
Yeah, one of the things I kind of noted in my recap is it seemed like Damien Sandow just completely lost his refined composure and just went all caveman here. I mean, it was punches and kicks and headbutts and, you know, I don't think I've seen Damien Sandow that physical. Nick, what was your thoughts on this match?
I've seen the physicality out of Damien Sandow. But he hasn't had it much since his debut, so it was good to see him carry it out in this match. I was really surprised that it started the pre-show, but I was pleased how long it went. It lasted about 15 minutes. Now hit his finisher and Sheamus kicked out, so we had false finishes in the pre-show match, and Sheamus hits the broke thing when he does it. That's the angle that they're going for with it.
Chris, what was your thoughts on the opening match?
I was amazed. Like you said, that level of physicality from Damien Sandow, I don't think I've ever seen that before from him. You know, I sat there with this match going, where the hell did this Damien Sandow come from? Where has he been hiding? Why has he not been wrestling like this? You know, very, very impressive match. I thought it could have been drawn out a little bit longer. I didn't totally love the brogue kick out of nowhere that we got, but you kind of get used to brogue kick out of nowhere. Overall, great match.
Okay, and finally, Steve, what was your thoughts on our opening bout on the pre-show?
Quite honestly, this is probably the best built-up pre-show match they've done in a while, because as everybody already said, they've been feuding on SmackDown for weeks now, and I really enjoyed the segment from the last SmackDown where he brought out the computer, allegedly the IBM Big Blue, to play chess. And, you know, Sheamus kind of comes across like a dick in the build-up to this, because all Damien Sandow is trying to do is educate people and impress the masses, and he just keeps getting beaten up by Sheamus. So I really wasn't surprised that he took the big boot and got pinned in this match, because even though Sheamus is the good guy, he's kind of been a dick to Sandow the whole time. So no matter how good of a match Sandow has, he's still going to lose.
This is one of the things I don't necessarily like about Sheamus's character as a babyface. He comes off a lot of times saying a lot of this babyface stuff, but when it comes to getting into a feud, he is a complete dick. I mean, if you remember his feud with Alberto Del Rio last year, he did nothing but egg this man on. I mean, he even hijacked his car and took it on a joyride and completely trashed it.
Yeah, for somebody who says he was bullied and picked on as a kid, he sure acts like a bully a lot of the time.
Yeah, and, you know, pretty much the same thing here. And one of the contrasts I really like in this build-up, though, is Damien Sandow, like you mentioned, was just simply trying to educate people, even if he was being a little smarmy about it all. But Sheamus' response to everything is like, fuck you, I don't need no education, bro kick.
Yeah, it's basically he's singing another brick in the wall. We don't want your education.
Something to that effect. But overall, this was a very physical and brutal match. Like you mentioned, they put a lot of effort into promoting this match. Usually they don't do that with pre-show matches. We might get a setup for it a week and a half before it happens. They've been pushing on this for a month now, so really good job. I hope it got the payoff at the opening of Payback here. So, Sheamus.
Well, the YouTube numbers seem pretty high. It was over 30,000 watching live when I checked, so I think this could be a good trend for future pre-shows. I hope the Money in the Bank one does a build-up comparable to this.
I hope so too. Now, one change in the pre-show that I didn't like is where the last couple times they've had the discussion panel discussing all the matches beforehand. They kind of changed from that format tonight. They didn't even do the discussion before the pre-show match. They opened right with that immediately. Then after that, they did a panel preview on the main event. They didn't do a promo package for the World Heavyweight title match. They just briefly mentioned it. And then cut away to the pay-per-view feed and said that they'd be back throughout the rest of the show. Which I didn't mind them being on for the rest of the show, but it would have been nice if they'd spent the rest of the pre-show actually talking about the rest of the matches. That's one of the big changes that they made here, and I wish they hadn't gone away from that.
You know, Kev, I just want to get this out of the way real quick. Since you mentioned you didn't mind them being back during the rest of the show, I minded the moment Josh Matthews said the Cubs will never win a World Series. Josh Matthews, you can suck it.
Well, somebody on that panel had to be heel because, two out of the 3 heels that were on that panel were complete baby faces tonight, I thought.
That was the thing that perplexed me the most, was that Big Show was favoring John Cena in the world title match. I'm like, really? Is this the character you're playing? I don't get it.
And smiling a lot like he has been as a babyface, so it's almost as if he forgot who he was.
I think so.
I don't think he forgot who he was, though. I think this is the Big Show. He when he's in a relaxed atmosphere, when he doesn't have anything personally on the line, he's a very jovial kind of character. But when he's in the middle of a feud or something, you don't want to be on his bad side.
He did remind us that he doesn't have an ironclad contract.
Yeah, he says he got an ironclad contract. Reminded us he has the ironclad contract. He can do what he wants. He came on the panel tonight, and he pretty much kind of took over the discussion. I mean, but in that last segment that they did, he pretty much did all the talking, and everybody else was just nodding in agreement with him.
Exactly. And I think the other thing with Big Show is he was giving respect to John Cena, because look how many times he's faced John Cena. John Cena won his first WWE title off the Big Show. So he's like, the guy is tough. So I don't care how tough Ryback is. I know how bad John Cena wants to say champion. So he's going to pick up the win. And on top of that, R-Truth really didn't talk. So I was confused on why he was out there to begin with.
Yeah, but he really didn't. I mean, these guys really don't have to say very much. They only got like 2 minutes. So
this is true.
One other thing I did notice, Cody Rhodes, in the middle of talking, actually made an admission that his win over the Big Show to pick up the Intercontinental Championship was almost an absolute fluke.
Yeah, I noticed that too. He did say that it was pure luck. I don't know if it was the threatening stare from Big Show, but he did say that he was lucky that night.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's interesting to see the interaction that all the superstars are having with each other on these panels. I kind of hope they do continue them, but like I said, I wish that they would preview all the matches on the pre-show, because it really doesn't take them that long to do that. So, we are finally moving on into the main part of the pay-per-view card. Our first match of the evening, we opened up with the WWE Intercontinental Championship match. This was originally billed as champion Wade Barrett defending against The Miz and with Fandango, but Fandango magically got himself a concussion legitimately last week. So replacing him as of this past Monday, Curtis Axel gets a shot at the title, and as soon as that happened, the internet started buzzing about what would happen if Curtis Axel won this title here. And I gotta say, the way this match ended, absolutely brilliant. Indeed, Curtis Axel does win this title, and it comes with Miz trying to lock on the figure 4 leg lock onto Wade Barrett, and because this is a triple threat match, Axel comes back into the ring, pins Barrett's shoulders to the mat. He can't get his shoulders up. He can't use his legs to kick free. He gets pinned. And Curtis Axel, the third generation superstar, the young upstart, gets his biggest win of his career yet with the WWE Intercontinental Championship. Stevie J, your thoughts on this match?
Well, I was campaigning in the chat room for either Wade Barrett to retain or Curtis Axel to win. My motto tonight was ABM, anybody but Miz. So to say I was happy with this finish would be an understatement. I'm kind of tired of them switching the Intercontinental title around like a hot potato, but I'm glad it's not back on The Miz, and I think Curtis Axel, by lucking into this spot, has taken the most advantage of it, and this is how you elevate the guy, because getting count-out wins over Triple H wasn't doing it. he could actually make something out of this title now, unless they treat him like everybody else that held the title and just have him lose to everybody on Raw and SmackDown. But if they don't go that route and they really are behind this push and he really is a Paul Heyman guy, this is a good thing.
Yes, I agree. One of the things that's kind of frustrated me over the Curtis Axel push is a couple things. First of all, they keep pushing that they know he's, third generation star, but they don't want him to be saddled by that heritage. But yet every time you turn around, they keep making references to his father, Kurt Hennig, and to his grandfather, Larry the Axe Hennig, and that doesn't allow him to stand out on his own as a superstar. The other thing is they keep wanting to push him as this monster guy, but his only monster wins have been count-out wins against Triple H and John Cena, and a couple of wins over Sin Cara, who is, maybe 98 pounds soaking wet at this point. So, I was disappointed in that. But when I heard that they put him in this match because Fandango was injured, I kind of had a feeling they were going to use this as a tool to push him, go ahead and put him on a title run, and maybe now we'll get to see him sink or swim a little bit more. Chris, what did you think?
I don't know. On the one hand, there's this guy that shows up out of absolutely freaking nowhere, and he gets all these quote-unquote wins over all the big names, and then all of a sudden he's got a belt. That's what the chat room was talking about while this match was going on, saying, oh, this guy's being shoved down our throat, and oh, this guy's being shoved down our throat, and oh, I'm so tired of this guy getting shoved down our throat. This is the WWE. Guys get shoved down your throat. You should have no gag reflex by this point in time. Seriously. People bitch about John Cena's getting shoved down our throats. People bitch for months about how Ryback was getting shoved down our throats. And Chris Jericho's getting shoved down our throats, and Fandango's getting shoved down our throats. This is what they do. You should really freaking be used to it by now. I promise. The way this match ended, I thought was brilliant. Like you said, Kev, I have never, I've been watching wrestling on and off now for, 17 years, and I have never seen an ending like that. Never ever. I absolutely loved it.
Okay, Nikolai, what was your thoughts on this match?
I had a lot of thoughts going into this, but first I do want to echo everything that you guys have been saying so far about it was a brilliant ending, brilliant finish, and a great way to win the title. But just a couple of points to bring up. This is a happy accident, in my view, for Curtis Axel. It makes you wonder what the original plan was when Fandango was originally scheduled in this match. Would he have won the title, or would Wade Barrett have retained it? But now that Curtis Axel has won, or inserted in the match, and now he's won the title, kudos to him. How much better could it be winning your first singles championship on Father's Day, and basically a tribute to his father, who passed away, obviously, Mr. Perfect. And what I always like to say is WWE listens to the SmackDown Rundown, because I had mentioned what I would do with Curtis Axel before jumping him into the main event is to give him a mid-card title, and here it is.
Absolutely. Jeff, your follow-up thoughts on that, sir?
I definitely agree with what everyone said. It was kind of a luck of the draw that Curtis got put into the match. The finish was brilliant. Personally, I think he should have started in the mid-card, then worked his way up into a big feud, like with Triple H or who have it. I'm not mad that he won. I'm just interested to see where they go with this, especially given the backstage interaction that he had with Triple H and Vince McMahon after he won the title. Yeah. And where does Wade Barrett go from here?
To me, I think Wade Barrett is going back into the wasteland here. He did a great job in this match, but WWE is they just can't get no traction with him, and I don't understand why. I mean, it's not Barrett's wrestling. It's not his promo work. It's not any of his skills. So I don't understand why things aren't clicking for this man. And much with the same with the Miz as well. Right now he's just not clicking with the fans. So I'm hoping Curtis Axel can take this belt and run with it here. But where he goes from here, like Jeff just mentioned, tomorrow night on Raw, he will be facing Triple H for that belt. And in a backstage segment afterwards, Triple H kind of stepped up in front of Axel when he was trying to walk his way backstage and refused to let him get him around him until Vince McMahon came up, and McMahon shook Axel and Heyman's hands and congratulated him, and that finally got them literally enough space to get around Triple H so they could move on. But a curious conversation between the boss man and the CEO. Vince was in a great mood, and he asked Triple H, "Are you feeling this?" And Triple H was just like, "No, I'm not feeling this at all," and just kind of walked off. So what does that mean? Well, we'll find out tomorrow night on Raw. Moving on, our second match on tonight's show was for the Divas Championship. Champion Caitlyn defending against AJ Lee with Big E Langston at ringside. And this, for me, I think was the strongest women's match I've seen on WWE programming in at least a year, maybe 2 years. Both these women just came out tough. Lot of great wrestling, a lot of brawling, not just cat fight, hair pulling, but more traditional wrestling style brawling out of both these women. And the end, there was a lot of emotion put into play here in the ring psychology. I completely bought into it all, but eventually we have Caitlyn succumbing to the Black Widow from AJ Lee. She is now your new WWE Women's Champion. Chris, what did you think of this match?
This was an amazing match. I have become so used to, slap your face, pull your hair, stick my butt in your face, oh hey, pinfall out of Divas matches in the WWE. And I have despaired of seeing actual wrestling out of anybody with a vagina. And it just kills me that we haven't been getting that. But this match tonight absolutely freaking blew my mind with the quality and the level of wrestling that came out of both AJ Lee and Caitlyn. I am not happy to see AJ Lee with the belt again. I think she's batshit crazy. Storyline wise, I don't like what they're doing with her. I don't like where any of this is going, but this was an amazing match.
Absolutely. I don't think I could add anything to that. Jeff, what did you think?
I love this match. This probably was the most exciting Divas match since Beth Phoenix versus Eve Torres for the Divas title at Survivor Series 2011. And that was a long time ago. This match is 3 years in the making, with the storyline of Caitlyn and AJ being on NXT, being the Chick Busters, and then all the things that happened with AJ over the past year, like we talked about on SmackDown Rundown. And it had that emotional aspect to it. AJ was taunting Caitlyn much throughout the match. Caitlyn was getting real physical. Caitlyn made a couple rookie mistakes, even though she's a Divas champion, and that's all she basically had going into this match. So she had the most to lose. AJ had nothing to lose because she got in Caitlyn's head, eventually locked in the Black Widow for a second time, picked up the win. She's the Divas champion. This feud's going to continue. I just want to see how it evolves now that Caitlyn basically has nothing. I mean, she has the support of her friends, the other divas who appeared in that backstage segment, Alicia Fox, Natty, Layla, but she just basically has to rebuild herself. So I'm interested to see the post-match repercussions that build on to this.
Absolutely, I would agree with that. Nikolai, your thoughts?
I love the build-up to this because finally, in a Divas match, there was a build-up. Now, these two divas have had history ever since NXT a couple of years ago, so that helped to make this match more interesting. Not only that, but AJ is a wrestler at heart, and it's not just, oh, look at me, I'm a pretty diva that I got plastic all over my body just because WWE told me so. No, like, this is like a legit feud that has built up, and it actually has months of history just for the title match alone. So to see this played out worked well. I'm really happy for AJ. She finally won the Divas title. And just the match itself was really good. They had a lot of hype going into it, not only for the fact that these two are finally going to get it on for the Divas title, but they had a lot of expectations, in my eyes, following the Knockouts match that was on the TNA pay-per-view just a couple of weeks ago, because that's really been talked about for a while now, and WWE had to step their game up to make this at least interesting, and in my job, they succeeded, in my eyes.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things that was just asked in the Angry Marks chat room by Rowdy Rob is, are we going to see a rematch tomorrow night on Raw? Good question. Stevie J, your thoughts on this match, and do you think we will see this again tomorrow night on Raw?
You'd have to say so, because every champion, no matter what title, minor or major, they all have the rematch clause that they get to immediately face the champion at the day of their choosing. And they got 3 hours to fill on Raw, and that can't all be Stephanie, Triple H, and Vince. So I think a rematch would be very appropriate.
Whoa. Hang on there. Don't give them any ideas. Just because you say they can't do that doesn't mean they won't do that. So,
well, it's like I told King J in the chat room earlier tonight. I'm becoming more and more a fan of SmackDown this summer because it's only 2 hours, not 3, and it's not nearly as McMahon-tastic as Raw.
That's true. So, my apologies for interrupting you. Jeff, go ahead real quick.
In all honesty, how I see this happening, AJ's backstage. She's worried about Dolph after what happened in his match, and we'll get to that later. Caitlyn sees her, snaps, and beats the holy unhell out of AJ backstage. She just snaps because AJ has her title.
Alrighty. But back to Steve. Steve, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there. Anyway, your thoughts on this match?
Well, can I just leave it at I'm happy AJ won? It's about time they had a Divas match on pay-per-view that amounted to something. I think that says it all.
Alrighty, well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. We can be satisfied with that. AJ Lee, your new WWE Divas Champion. Next up on our card, we had a brief promo for the WWE Money in the Bank pay-per-view, and then we went to the United States Championship with Dean Ambrose defending his title against the Monster Kane. This was a really good, solid match. I wouldn't have expected anything less out of these two men. A lot of people are not happy with the result, though. I thought it worked really good considering the psychology of Dean Ambrose, the size of Kane. At the end of this match, what happened was the action spilled out to the outside of the ring. Kane tried to give a choke slam to Ambrose. Ambrose ends up turning that into a DDT and then scrambles back into the ring before the referee can count them both out. Kane can't even get his big ass up, and Dean Ambrose retains his title by a count here. Stevie J, I think you were the most vocal about this in the chat room. Elaborate on that. Why didn't you like this?
I always feel it makes a champion look weak when they win by a countout or retain by a disqualification. And I don't like that for Dean Ambrose because, quite frankly, he is the leader of the Shield. He is the most physically effective. He's the most charismatic when they cut promos. This is a guy that I want to see them get all the way behind and go straight to the moon with him. And yeah, it was a great physical match between him and Kane, and you like to see that when you shell out $44.95 for a pay-per-view, but you also like to see people get wins and losses when you shell out that kind of money.
Right, I'll agree with that, especially the bullshit that we had out of the Extreme Rules pay-per-view. That left a lot of bad taste in people's mouths. I'll agree there, but for this match and what's been happening with the Shield this past week, especially considering their big loss that they had this past Friday on SmackDown, it seems to me like it's not out of line to me for the Shield to be scrambling a little bit to try to get a little bit of their swagger back.
Maybe so, but do you really want to see a Kane and Dean Ambrose program continue beyond one pay-per-view? I don't know that there's really a lot of mustard in that I would spread on top of everything they're doing. It just doesn't seem to me like it's a big-time feud for him.
No, not right now anyway. The way that they set up this whole thing anyhow felt just a little bit contrived, but being that as it was, as a one-off match for this, I'm fine with it, I think. Nick, your thoughts on the match?
To break the monotony of agreeing with every single match, I think this is the first match we're going to have a disagreement on, and to Stevie's point, I actually didn't mind the countout. It wasn't as if Dean Ambrose was doing everything in his power to get the cheap win. It was more so he found a way to win at Kane's fault, because Kane had dominated the match for quite some time towards the end. Dean Ambrose was fighting and trying to retain his championship. Kane then goes to take apart the announce table, and Ambrose just takes advantage, gives him a DDT, and rolls back in the ring. And it's not like he's gonna hurt Kane's big body back up and roll him in the ring. And the referee's count was already at 7, approaching 8. So I think Dean Ambrose just basically said, well, you know what? Either it's going to be a double count out or a single count out. He took the high road and got the W column in his chart.
Yeah, I agree there. I don't think you can really fault Dean Ambrose for this, because it's not like he set it up to avoid a win here, or I should say avoid losing. He simply just got back into the ring, and Kane just couldn't make it back in. Jeff, I'm sorry. Your thoughts on the match?
I agree with you. Dean used the environment that Kane laid out there. Kane took it to the outside. Kane tried to chokeslam him through the announce table. Dean slapped him in the face for it. And Dean countered with a DDT. He rolled back in the ring before the 10 count. And even if it had been a double count out, Dean still would have won. So, in my book, a win's a win's a win. It's not like Nick said. He didn't intentionally try and get himself disqualified, didn't intentionally try and get the count out victory. He just said, I ain't looking his big ass in the ring. Screw this. And roll back in the ring. And who knows, they could have the rematch of this match tomorrow on Raw. Kane's like, I got counted out. I want a match again. They have a match. Dean wins pin, clean, and we move on to the next thing.
Alrighty. And Chris, last thoughts.
I really have to disagree with Jeff here. When I was a kid, my dad and I, happy Father's Day, Daddy, even though I know you're not listening to this, my dad and I played in a golf tournament every year. And it was a parent-child mixer, and they divided it up between, dad and daughter and dad and son and mom and daughter and mom and son, and then divided it out by age range of the child, and we won every year. We were the only father-daughter team in our age division every year, but we won every year. And that kind of a win to me is not really a win. There's a win by count out, and then there's a motherfucker, I kicked your ass and by God I win. And to me, a count out win like this on a pay-per-view, that's lazy. That's, I don't blame Dean Ambrose for it. I blame the, WWE creative, the writers, who said, oh, hey, this is what we're gonna do. Because to me, that says, oh, hey, we can't be bothered to come up with anything, real or decent, so we're just gonna, do a count out and, fuck you people.
Yeah, I mean, I can see how you get that. Maybe they have plans to continue a feud between Dean and Kane. I don't know. But yeah, there's definitely, I'll give you that. There's a difference between getting a pin or submission in the ring versus, I'll take the count out. And it kind of seems like the cowardly way out. But maybe they have, like I said, maybe they have bigger plans for it. You never know with WWE. But it did kind of seem lazy. It's like, a count out in a title match.
Alrighty. Well, as I said at the beginning, this is going to be some mixed reaction to that. No different here on our panel. So, moving on, I tell you what, I think tonight was a great night to break this news. Rob Van Dam is going to be returning to WWE. He will re-debut with the company at the Money in the Bank pay-per-view next month when it's in the ECW backyard of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I'm excited. Now we thought, we've been hearing rumors that Rob Van Dam was going to re-sign with the company. Now it's official. So, just a quick check around with everybody. What are your thoughts on this? We will start off with Steve.
The fear I see when I look in your eyes makes you believe I'm one of a kind.
There you go. Nikolai, your thoughts?
I was shocked. I was watching the promo and I was expecting them to announce a DVD, not a return. But hey, I'm happy to see RVD. I love every time he's in WWE because he wasn't being used right in TNA. But then again, is anybody?
I don't know. I thought he was being used right in TNA because pretty much Rob Van Dam came into TNA with his own agenda, which is, I'll wrestle whenever I want. I don't want to be on the road too much. I want to spend lots of time at home with my wife, who's been fighting some illness off and on the last couple of years. So I think he got everything out of TNA I think he wanted. And now I think he's just looking to, he's kind of had it easy the last couple of years. TNA, he might have gotten everything he wanted schedule-wise out of it, but there's definitely a pay difference there, and there's constant shifts in the political scene there as well, so maybe he felt it was time to jump back into WWE. His contract expired, he's been gone for a while. Way to go. King Jeff, your thoughts?
To quote Sierra, I like Rob, but am I supposed to be like, oh my god, it's Rob Van Dam?
I was.
Yes, that's what you're supposed to be like, I think.
Well, I'm not. I mean, I grew up watching the original ECW, and yes, what he did there was great. His first WWE run, it was good, till it wasn't. And then I was like, oh, you left. And then he went somewhere else. Then he went somewhere else, and I didn't give a damn. And I'm like, okay, Rob, just go sit down with your ponytail and the ring gear that you've been rocking since 1996. And no. I mean, him coming to the main roster, yeah, it's a big, yay, this guy's back. We love RVD. But you're taking a spot from somebody on the roster who might have gotten the spot. So, whatever.
I think the more important question is Ryback going to have to change his ring gear now?
I was just thinking that too.
Yeah, for those who don't know, the same person who makes Ryback's ring gear is also the same guy who makes RVD's ring gear, and a matter of fact, in an interview, Ryback said that RVD referred him to that person, so...
The spray-on designs?
Yep. So, meanwhile, I'll just wrap up and say, it'll be great to see RVD back for the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, because he was definitely one of the greatest attractions for that pay-per-view. But after that pay-per-view, where does he fit into the shuffle in WWE in 2013? See, this is a question I asked of Chris Jericho last year, and last year it seemed like he really didn't fit in any place at all. I hope that this year they use Rob Van Dam, much the same way that they use Chris Jericho, use him to put over the younger talent we've got going here, and maybe, use him in a utilitarian role that way. He doesn't need a title. He doesn't need to be main event. But it'll be good to see him in a match and make other wrestlers look better. So, that said, we'll try one more time with Chris Judd. Do we have you back now?
Yes, I'm back now.
Alright, any thoughts on the return of Rob Van Dam?
Yeah, my big question there is, have we removed marijuana violations from the wellness policy?
Considering the Jack Swagger incident, maybe we have.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest, I give approximately 0 fucks that he's coming back.
Fair enough. Not everybody's a fan of Rob Van Dam. We'll just see how this run goes. So, moving on, to the next match on our card, we have the WWE World Heavyweight Championship. Dolph Ziggler making his return to pay-per-view along with Big E Langston and AJ Lee, defending the title against Alberto Del Rio, who had Ricardo Rodriguez by his side, of course. This was a really interesting match. Of course, first of all, you're dealing with the Chicago crowd here. They definitely don't like baby faces. They love heels. But on top of that, you have an Alberto Del Rio character who has a baby face, just hasn't caught fire with fans to begin with. And you've got a Dolph Ziggler character that even though he's heel, fans all over the place, more and more, have gotten behind him. So this really boiled down to a point here in this show, on this match. As we all know, Ziggler is coming back off of a concussion, and it seemed that was Alberto Del Rio's plan, was to try to kick Dolph Ziggler in the head as many times as he could to re-aggravate that injury in order to pick up the win. And this match was just brutal in that respect. And in the end, Del Rio got his bell rung enough, literally, that, Ziggler got his bell rung enough that Del Rio was able to pull off a win after it seems like, like a billion kicks to the head. And fans were not behind this at all. Del Rio, nothing but boos. Eventually, when Ziggler was able to get back to his feet, he got the sympathetic support of the fans, not just, heel-loving Chicago, but it really felt like it was true sympathy and respect here for Ziggler. Jeff, we'll start off with you. What were your thoughts on this match?
I'm kind of mixed on this match because I felt like Dolph needed his first title defense to be a successful one. This felt one-sided as a mug tonight. I mean, the way Del Rio kept going at him as soon as the bell rang, the way that he baited Biggie Langston on the outside to get him ejected, it just felt this was show off Del Rio and how vicious he can be. And we haven't seen Del Rio be this vicious since his feud with Sheamus when he was a heel. And like you said, the Chicago crowd is such a unique monster in of itself that they love heels so much and they hate the baby faces. It felt as if the crowd was turning Del Rio heel throughout this match, and Dolph was kind of turning face in this match. We don't know if that's really what WWE has planned, but they put the belt on Del Rio, which kind of shocked me in a way. And then it seems like they're going to play up some sort of angle where Dolph may still have some concussion type symptoms or re-aggravated the injury due to Del Rio kicking him in the head like 3,000 times in this match and dropping him on his head a couple thousand times. And then that promo that Del Rio cut after the match was just crazy. Because I was like, okay, you won. You're going to go off to the back. But
yeah.
Nope, he came out there and just, I was like, okay, Del Rio.
Yeah, that really made me think some things after this match. After the match, they were in the middle of going back to the Payback discussion panel, and they get cut off by Del Rio coming back out and just desperately trying to get some support from the fans here. He's like, come on, just give it up for me. I come out here, I put everything on the line every night. I give more than 100%. I deserve to be your champion. And the fans just pissed all over this when they did it.
You could tell that was Vince McMahon calling an audible, Kev, because the fact that Del Rio came back out during the middle of the discussion panel and that he started using the word, I deserve this, I deserve your respect, I deserve to be the champion, you can tell that Vince was like, okay, we're turning him heel right here, right now. We're going to go with the crowd reaction. Go out there and play to the crowd.
Yeah, now, I'll admit, I kind of felt like maybe they were going to slowly do that, but as bitter as this crowd was, and as hostile as they were towards Del Rio, it just seems to me like this right now was the best moment to take an opportunity here to go ahead and start flipping Del Rio back towards heel, because let's face it, as a babyface, he sucked. I like Del Rio as a wrestler. I would, and I had high hopes that maybe he could make a good impression as a babyface, but he just ain't hitting it with the fans at all. He comes off as kind of too whiny, and too much like he's trying to kiss everybody's ass.
Yeah, the ass-kissing part was the part that really killed him as a babyface, because when he came out and started saying things like, I was born in Mexico, but I was made in America. It's like, get the fuck out of here with that bullshit. Nobody believes you. Nobody wants to hear that. You could have several seats. So
exactly.
It's not that it's a bad thing that he's turning heel. It's just, Jeff said it all earlier when he said, I like the idea, but not the execution. I have mixed feelings about it, because Ziggler needed to be a strong champion, and to lose his first title defense for furtherance of this angle, I just feel like there were better ways to achieve flipping Del Rio back to heel than that.
Well,
yeah.
Go ahead, Jeff.
And on top of that, that leaves Dolph in limbo. Is he still going to be a heel come Monday night? Because, AJ, he, Big E, are they going to play this up on Raw? Because, they're going to be in Grand Rapids. Michigan is about a 2 hour from Chicago, so is Del Rio going to get no reaction? Is it going to get the heel reaction? And his babyface push was basically made by Ricardo Rodriguez because everyone loved him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is true. Chris, your thoughts on this match?
You know, I really don't think I could care less who the belt is on. I really, truly, I don't care. I don't care about this feud. I don't care about the belt. I don't, Jack Swagger got involved and I didn't care, and, Jack Swagger got uninvolved and I still didn't care. Here's my issue. Concussions are kinda serious business. That's like major brain injury, especially when there's amnesia involved. This is for realsies here. A concussion is a serious thing. I mean, imagine when Jerry Lawler came back after his heart attack, if the very first thing Vince had him doing was standing in the ring while CM Punk took chest shots at him. Would everybody be okay with that? This to me, this is where Vince and his writers just go way beyond the pale, where they just they say, oh, we've got this, this thing that, hey, we could work this into a storyline. And that's great and all, except when it's for realsies. Especially with all of the stuff coming out of the NFL about, the dangers of the concussions and the effects that can come so far afterwards. Look at Chris Benoit. People saying that came from, traumatic brain injuries. And the football players who have flipped out and killed girlfriends and then killed themselves. And the doctors are saying that's coming from repeated brain injuries. And here we go. Let's play this up. Let's make it a big gag. Let's take a few more headshots and have him throw off the doctor and, oh, ha ha ha, we'll make money on this controversy. And that's not fucking okay. Dolph Ziggler may be saying, yeah, go ahead. I don't mind. Just like Jerry Lawler, when he came back, said, yeah, that's okay, go ahead, I don't mind. But there are things that aren't okay. And this one is not okay.
Well, that's a strong opinion, and I think everybody appreciates hearing that. And that kind of went through the back of my mind as well. Especially with as many concussion angles as WWE's ran the last couple weeks, especially right after Dolph Ziggler got that injury. We were dealing it with Triple H. We had it dealing it with John Cena, and those are storyline ones. And then last week, Fandango gets a real concussion.
It's like they picked the inopportune time to do concussion angles when people legitimately have them.
Yeah, I'll agree there. So, WWE doesn't always have the best of judgment here. Nick, your thoughts on this?
I have to agree with Chris there. It's to continue this match and base it off of the concussion. I mean, yes, Ziggler had a real serious concussion, but to play the match out and make Del Rio look like he's legit trying to make him have another concussion, that I was not okay with. And I understand that he has a lot of headshots in his arsenal, but Del Rio has always been known in his matches to attack the arm and attack the arm and attack the arm for his cross arm breaker, and it just seems like they completely shunned away from that. The crowd really turned on this match from the get-go. They didn't like Del Rio at all. And for him to come out post-match and cut that promo was a desperate act to get a reaction. Whether it's for him to save face and get the crowd on his side, or to turn heel to get the crowd to turn on him even more, it was not necessary at all. I don't care if they're trying to make Del Rio heel or keep him face, but they didn't need to put the title on him to do that. And they just basically chumped Dolph Ziggler and his title run just to make this happen, if that's the case. Now, the only way I could justify Del Rio winning the title back is if at some point during the match Dolph Ziggler said that, he's having headaches again, or, he's not feeling well and they needed to take the title off him. That's the only way I could see. If I see a news report the next night saying Dolph Ziggler has been hospitalized or he's been told to take another month off, then I'll say that's fine. Or maybe he came back too soon and wasn't cleared and they had to get the title off of him so he can take some more time to rest. That's the only way that I could justify Del Rio winning the title back. Otherwise, I am not happy with them just dropping the title from Ziggler when they could have just stripped him of the title belt to keep him off TV if that was the case in the first place.
I'll agree there, and I think the way things went tonight was definitely done with a purpose, and this just wasn't fly by your seat booking. If Dolph Ziggler was still not ready to come back, which from what I was hearing from the reports up till last week, he cleared all of his tests. He was ready to go back into the ring. He felt good. But if he was not feeling it, then I think the decision that they probably would have made is to, if they knew well enough in advance that he really wasn't good enough to wrestle, do a backstage angle where he somehow gets hurt and can't defend the title tonight, so the match gets scrapped and Del Rio faces somebody else. Or if it happened in the middle of the match, then they would have done an angle to where Del Rio somehow gets disqualified. Ziggler retains the title. We figure out what we do after that. This title switch, to me, they did it on purpose. And I think they really did it on purpose, specifically to set up the ADR heel turn. And I think they want to tease a little bit more of Dolph Ziggler maybe being a babyface. Because I brought this up to Steve in chat. What is more interesting at this point? A Dolph Ziggler who has, some fan support, but is still a heel, is coming off of this injury, he hasn't been back for a while, or a guy that the fans legitimately love now having to chase the title. And I really think that fans are going to be more interested in a character that they like chasing for the title, and having that title on somebody that the fans, at the very least, simply could care less about. I think that makes more sense than having the title on a guy that the fans are passionate about, but you can't get any opponents into a good feud with him. Now Dolph Ziggler is chasing the title. You've got all kinds of reasons to have something to say in these fights.
But the problem, Kev, is it's just jumping the gun. They could have done this naturally over the course of 3 or 4 months, where slowly Dolph Ziggler turns on Big E or AJ turns on him, and the crowd gets behind him, and you can tell he's going to go face at any moment, and they're already cheering for him because he's having great matches. This could have been done with progression over time. They didn't need to hotshot it tonight.
Yeah, and not only that, but AJ had just won the Divas title. Call me old-fashioned, but I liked it back then when Triple H was the WWE champion and Stephanie McMahon was the women's champion. Granted, it was just because they were in power, but I wanted to see Dolph Ziggler as the world champion and AJ as the Divas champion side by side, and we barely got that for about maybe, 30 minutes. We didn't even get to see it.
Right, absolutely.
Well, but still, there's no telling what'll happen tomorrow night on Raw. Maybe they do a rematch and they shot it back to Ziggler. I mean, it's not like WWE hasn't done that recently with a title, so maybe we'll see. There's going to be lots of opinion, lots of fallout from this match for sure. But we're going to move on in the card up to CM Punk finally making his return in front of the Chicago crowd against Chris Jericho, who has been calling him out over the last couple of weeks and questioning whether he can still call himself the quote-unquote best in the world when he hasn't been back since WrestleMania and Jericho has been back busting his ass in front of the fans here. Let me just say this. I think we have a match of the year candidate right here. Last year, these two guys faced each other up to WrestleMania in a series of feuds. I really wasn't feeling it. It felt like both these guys were just phoning it home. This year, they completely went out there and blew the roof off. Tons of wrestling, tons of ring psychology here. It doesn't get better than this, ladies and gentlemen. I thought they did a great job in this match. They beat the piss out of each other here. Eventually, Chris Jericho is knocked out with the GTS, takes a second one. CM Punk covers him, gets the win here. Fans just go absolutely nuts for their native son here, CM Punk. We'll go to Chris for first thoughts here.
I cared not at all about the storyline. I don't give a flying fuck. To be perfectly blunt about Chris Jericho or CM Punk. but I will agree with you. This was a match of the year candidate. These guys did a really awesome job. My biggest complaint was that CM Punk looks really weird with the mutton chops and no mustache.
Yeah, looked a little odd. Nick, your thoughts?
My thoughts are just going to be plain and simple. Match of the year. Best match they've had in a long time. Way better than last year. And the crowd was even into it. So, and not just because Punk was the hometown hero. It's just all the false finishes and everything in between. Match of the year.
All right, Steve, and your thoughts?
Yeah, I guess nothing about this surprised me, but nothing I can complain about either. I knew that Punk would get the monster babyface reaction. I almost thought they oversold it a little in the crowd when they would boo Jericho on every single near fall. I'm like, you know what, guys? Settle down a little bit. I know you're monster behind Punk, but you could wait until closer to the actual finish to react that big for every fall of the match. But, be that as it may, I love Chicago crowds. I always have. My favorite WrestleMania still is the one I went to in Chicago. So, honestly, 2 thumbs up for this match. It was great to see Jericho and Punk go out there and put on the show that we know they can do. And it delivered. For me, this was the real main event.
Yeah, and I also wanted to add that I expected the crowd to turn in this match, and the way Jericho reacted to it, he went in this knowing he was going to get booed. So that's what I also loved about it.
Yeah, Jericho's been on the side of the fans in Chicago many a times. He knows how to play that out, and I think he did a real good job with that.
Oh, in fact, I want to add something based on what both you and Nick said. The fact that when they booed him the first time, Jericho just kind of turned and looked at the hard camera and smirked. I was like, that's perfect. That is why Chris Jericho is the best in the world at what he does, because he knows how to take what the crowd's giving them and feed it back to them. He just channels it, and it flows through him, and it goes right back to the crowd.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeff, your thoughts on the match?
Match of the year candidate. When you have people like CM Punk and Chris Jericho in a ring facing each other, you expect something great. That feud last year, that drug on way too long. This definitely made up for that whole debacle of if you want to call that a feud. And it was a great way to reintroduce Punk to the WWE Universe after his month and a half off.
Yep, I agree. So, that said, we'll see tomorrow night where the road for Chris Jericho and CM Punk goes. Rumor has it Jericho is stepping back out on tour, so we're not going to see a lot of him. It'll be interesting to see where they fit CM Punk back into the storylines here. One more thing before we move on here. I'm going to specifically ask this for Stevie J. What were your thoughts on CM Punk rocking the Chicago Blackhawks ring gear tonight?
Well, I had to expect that because Punk has a tradition of playing to the crowd, whether he's for them or against them, because we all know that he rocked those Yankees colors when he was in Boston just to piss off the fans there. So I wasn't surprised that coming out in Chicago, he wore the hometown colors just to make those fans happy.
And I was there for that when he wore the pinstripe attire.
You know, I really thought that the gear was tasteful, though. I thought it completely fit in here, so kudos to CM Punk for not forgetting where he came from there and paying back homage to those fans. So, moving on into the show, we get into the business end of the card, as they say. Our semi-main event for the evening was The Shield defending their tag team championships against Randy Orton and Daniel Bryan. And we had a lot of momentum for Daniel Bryan and Orton here coming into this match as they pick up a win over The Shield in 6-man tag action. It was big enough that Lillian Garcia specifically had to point this out on the Friday Night SmackDown broadcast, that this is the first time that The Shield has lost in a 6-man or in the 3-man configuration. But now we're just down to Seth Rollins and Roman Reigns here defending those tag titles tonight. There were questions about whether these two guys who just only recently started working together would be effective enough tonight. And as we would find out, no, they weren't effective enough tonight. Once again, the Shield take advantage of chaos in the ring, end up able to turn partners against each other in a couple of critical moves. And in the end, it is Daniel Bryan who takes the pinfall after Seth Rollins. What move did Seth Rollins hit on him right at the end?
The blackout.
The blackout, okay. For some reason, I thought it looked like a rocker dropper, but surely they're not using that as the name, and maybe I didn't see it because everything was just kind of a blur. So I'll have to go back out and fix that again. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. We had Rollins picking up the win over Daniel Bryan to retain the title. I was expecting a lot of post-match grief between Orton and Daniel Bryan because I didn't think they were going to win. Didn't get that at all. We'll start off with Steve. Steve, what was your thought on the match?
Well, you said you expected a lot of post-match grief between Orton and Bryan, but they've been saving all their curious interactions for Raw and SmackDown because one moment they seem to be at each other's throats, and the next minute they're just standing there watching a match together on a monitor backstage. So you can never quite figure out where the two of them are at any given point, which is why this team is sort of fascinating and sort of pointless at the same time. You know, it's the odd couple dynamic that Kane and Daniel Bryan had, but lack of a better word, I'm going to say without the chemistry. There's no bromance there between the two of them, so it doesn't quite click, but it's just an intermediary stage because they have plans for Orton, they have plans for Bryan, and this was just something for them to do in the meantime.
Alrighty, yeah, and the conflict that I was specifically expecting was that it was going to be Daniel Bryan once again just going all out berserk, but somehow still managing to lose the match, and he would, start on the whole, I'm the weak link thing, and Orton just would get pissed off not having it, hit him with an RKO and walk off. Instead, what we ended up having was, at the very end, Daniel Bryan was trying to fight off Rollins and Reigns. Reigns was getting ready to set up for a spear. Orton slides into the ring to try to hit an RKO out of nowhere on Reigns, and he tries to shove him into Daniel Bryan. They halted each other, but then Orton, almost like as a second sense, spins around and sees Reigns charging, and literally, he just like grabs Bryan by the back of his head and chucks him right into Roman Reigns, and he eats the spear before Rollins takes out Orton. And then after the match, Orton just walks off. Jeff, your thoughts on the match?
How predictable. A man who hears voices in his head and a short man who looks like a billy goat with a ego complex about himself don't get along. This was so predictable. I like the way that it ended with Daniel Bryan hitting Orton by accident on the outside, and then Orton kind of getting revenge, but in an inadvertent way by throwing Daniel into that spear. Next feud, Daniel Bryan versus Randy Orton. Let's see who'll be heel.
Yeah, I'll agree with you there. It was predictable, but predictable doesn't always mean bad. I thought this was a really good, solid match here. Chris, your thoughts on the match?
This is like the most schizophrenic damn thing I have ever tried to figure out. I said at the beginning of the show that I haven't been watching a lot lately because I've been working so much. So I was like really confused as to why Randy Orton and Daniel Bryan are paired up. And then watching, some of the pre-show stuff, not quote unquote the pre-show, but the channel that I was watching, they had a pre-show, montage of shit that was going on that led up to all of this.
The Barker channel.
Sure. And there was, all this stuff going on between Kane and Daniel Bryan, and you're the weak link. No, I'm not the weak link. Maybe you're the weak link. And then Randy Orton shows up to try to, calm things down because Kane's about to chokeslam Daniel Bryan. And where the fuck did all this come from? And why are we not just hugging it out? And who the fuck even cares? And I was really confused. I have no idea what the fuck is going on. But it was a really good match.
All right. And Nikolai, last thoughts on the match.
It's times like this where I feel for people like Chris who spend so much time at work and don't have much time to watch WWE television, which is why King J and myself host the preview show for, little hour, maybe 70 minutes of time to talk about everything and preview the matches, just in case WWE doesn't have the time to tell us why these guys are getting payback on each other. Because right after CM Punk went through the Gorilla Curtain, the Shield came out immediately, and then Randy Orton followed by Daniel Bryan. This whole thing felt rushed. This match in particular. There was no preview, there was barely any talk about it, there were no clips to show us why this is happening, and like I mentioned, for people like Chris who haven't caught up on why these guys are fighting and why they're not getting along, this kind of situation doesn't help, because there was, like I said, this match was rushed. They got right into it. They didn't waste any time. They were trying to save time for the main event because a couple of other stuff went long. I blame Del Rio coming back out, not Del Rio's fault, but that whole segment just took forever. And it took time away from this actually being a well-paced match. So I just felt like they rushed through everything. They rushed through Randy Orton's comeback, Daniel Bryan's comeback, and the match felt quick. So it was still a good match, and I liked that it was predictable. We did expect Daniel Bryan and Randy Orton to have some miscues here and there. No RKO on Daniel Bryan. Randy Orton just walks out. Again, situation felt rushed, that there was no time to have them argue with each other. Instead, Orton just walks away dejected.
You know what it felt like? It felt like they had the CM Punk match, this match, and the 3 Stages of Hell match, which were the 3 biggest matches on the card, arguably, give or take, how you felt about some of the other matches, because Daniel Bryan's been on such a momentous roll, so they wanted to make sure, okay, guys, you can't go to the bathroom during these next 3 matches. But I felt like the placement of this match was off. It should have been before the CM Punk match, because it would have got the people hype for the next thing, which would have been the CM Punk match. But they wanted that break between CM Punk and John Cena, obviously. I think that might be what hurt the match. Like, being rushed and everything, and then, like you said, the Del Rio coming back out there to cut that promo that should have been like, come on guys, just cheer for me, and then walk off.
I don't know. It didn't really feel like it was rushed to me. I mean, it was fast paced, but then again, Shield matches are typically very fast paced. But that said, I'll agree. I think CM Punk versus Chris Jericho should have went to the semi-main event here, because it was a slower paced match in a lot of respects. The psychology was dragged out a little bit more, and it would have been a real great cool down match before we finally got to the pay-per-view main event. So that said,
well, sorry to cut you off, Kev, but just to elaborate, when I said it felt rushed, if you look at it on both Raw and SmackDown, the Shield typically have the longest matches on the entire shows. That's why this felt rushed.
Well, I'll give you that. But then again, they're typically the best match on either show. So, it makes sense that they get more time.
Touche.
So in comparison to that, yeah, I can see how you say this might feel rushed, but I don't know. To me, it just felt like it was about perfectly paced with everything else that was going on. So that said, we will roll into our main event match of the night. John Cena defending the WWE Championship against Ryback in a 3 Stages of Hell match. And for those who are still confused about what this means, basically means it's a match that's got 3 other individual matches with 3 different stipulations. And the stipulations that they laid out was, the first one was a lumberjack match with 30 wrestlers around the ring. The only way you can win is by pinfall or submission inside the ring. But there's not going to be any countouts, because the wrestlers around the ring are not going to let you get count out. They're throwing your ass back in there. The second match, Stage 2, was a tables match with no disqualifications, no countout, no pinfalls, no submissions. Only way to win is by slamming your opponent through a table and breaking it. And then the third stage, if it was necessary, an ambulance match. Once again, no disqualification, no countouts, no pinfalls, no submission. The only way you win is by putting your opponent inside the ambulance and shutting the door, or they otherwise cannot move, and so the ambulance drives away, they can't get out. So, that being said, we went through all 3 stages here, and I really was not feeling this match coming in. This ended up being a really fun match. Maybe not the greatest wrestling match, but it was a fun match. I thought it was an okay end to the pay-per-view. Before I get into my thoughts, I think we will start off with Chris.
Oh, sure. Start with me on this one. Yeah.
Not feeling it?
I did not love this match. I mean, it was okay. I don't know that I would say it was fun. I did enjoy John Cena's flying leap off the top turnbuckle into the crowd of lumberjacks. That was different. I didn't really care for the tables part. I thought it was sad that the stairs kept, what did those stairs ever do to Ryback? I mean, really. Those poor stairs. And then the end. Okay, you have to understand, folks, I was in a car accident, about 2 months ago, and they had to, use Jaws of Life to get me out of the car, so I know how tough cars are. And I would presume that an ambulance would be at least as tough as a Hyundai Sonata. You'd think. But they were, demolishing this poor ambulance. I mean, they're ripping off the door of the damn thing, and spider webbing the windshield, and then we rip off the lights off the top, and then Ryback goes through the roof of the ambulance, and that's how this whole thing ends. And I'm sitting here going, wait a minute. Is this thing made of, bubblegum and saran wrap? It is... Rowdy Rob in the chat room is asking, what does the ambulance say about the finances of the city of Chicago? The way it came apart made it look like something out of a scrapyard. Yeah! It was just... That part especially, for me at least, was so unbelievable. I get that there's the whole suspension of disbelief thing with professional wrestling. Oh, I'm sorry, wrestling entertainment? Is that what we're calling it these days?
Sports entertainment.
Sports entertainment. Okay. There's this whole suspension of disbelief thing that goes along with sports entertainment that, we all agree collectively that we're gonna believe that all this stuff is real. And that kind of works. Except when they push it too far, oh, hey, you're gonna go through the roof of this ambulance after you rip the door off. Really? Give the WWE Universe a little bit of credit here. Please.
Yeah, I'll agree there. I mean, when it got to the ambulance portion, with the door being ripped off, the fender being ripped off, the lights, the windows punched out, I'm like, good grief, is this a wrestling match? Or is this the bonus stage with Ken and Ryu from Street Fighter 2 here? I mean, it's ridiculous that this poor ambulance got beat up. Jeff, your thoughts?
Who the hell did the ambulance piss off? I like the, Nick, you and I were right again. We said that Ryback was going to pin John Cena in the first fall. John was going to win the tables match. Very, very predictable. Then, the ambulance. First, the regular announce table got broken, not the Spanish announce table.
Yeah, isn't that odd? How did the Spanish announcer's table survive?
I mean, this year alone, the Spanish announce table has been very, very lucky not to get broken. Whereas in years past, it was always the one that got broken, and then if that one was demolished, then the regular announce table. But now it's regular announce table, you get broke first. Then if we have time, we'll get to the Spanish one. Then they got back to the ambulance, and all these crutches came out of nowhere. And they're beating the piss out of each other with crutches, and then the door came off, and then Michael Cole said, if John Cena puts him in the driver's seat, John Cena wins. And I'm like, wait, don't you have to go in the back of the ambulance? Because you get right back out the front of the ambulance. So
yeah,
that confused me. And then they just started tearing apart the ambulance, and I was like, okay, this is some rickety ass ambulance that y'all done found in some scrapyard and just applied a little bit of paint, and
yeah,
that was bad.
Yeah, it really did look bad. Nick, your thoughts?
Well, I will agree with you, Kev, that the match was fun. Maybe as a whole, the Lumberjack match was fun. I don't know what happened, but when this match started, the whole internet went down, and Angry Marks chat went down, and I couldn't even communicate with anybody for a while. All I saw was Jeff in there, and then all of a sudden everything came back to normal. And I was so distracted, I barely saw the lumberjack match. And I saw the end, I saw the big splash, which I thought, I got a good chuckle out of that. The table match was, wasn't really anything to write home to. The stairs lost, went through 2 tables, so stairs didn't stand a chance. The ambulance...
I don't know, I thought the stairs did better after the match than the ambulance did.
This is true.
Getting to the ambulance, I'm convinced that it's a life-size toy where you buy it from a company and they ship it to you UPS or whatever, and you see on the package assembly required. And I'm thinking that this is a complete toy with how easily the pieces came off. And, you had the side bumper. The door I actually expected to come off just because it was open. I was expecting someone to go flying into it. But the side panel, the siren on the roof, plunging through the roof of the ambulance, I mean, come on, that wasn't real.
I know.
That was not real.
I think actually that package came in the mail. Caution, contents may have been damaged in shipping because it didn't arrive in Chicago in one piece.
Actually, you know what?
I swear I saw an X on the top of the ambulance just pointing to where you get slammed through it.
Or maybe it was just the dreaded X because the ambulance was hurt and needed help getting out of the building.
I have breaking news here, ladies and gentlemen. It turns out that the ambulance is actually product placement. It is the debut of the new Lego Titanics line.
Assembly required.
You know what? I really felt bad when I saw the American flag on the side of that, and I thought, this is not the kind of American craftsmanship we want to advertise. This is not speaking well of the products that we make.
Yes, American flag on it. Made in North Korea. Oh, goodness gracious. Steve, your thoughts on the match?
Well, it was pretty predictable. I know we've used that word several times tonight, but it really fits because nobody believed this wasn't going to the third fall. This isn't Lucha Libre where sometimes in a 3-fall match they do 2 straight falls just to throw you a curveball. It's a WWE pay-per-view. It is the main event. They advertised 3 stages of hell. We knew we were going to get all 3 of them. So poor Cole and JBL are trying like hell to sell the fact that he's already down 1 fall. This could end right now. Well, bullshit. We all knew better. But it was all saved up for the comedy of the final fall, the ambulance, and it just turned into a clusterfuck. But I actually found it a very enjoyable clusterfuck. I just looked at the ambulance falling apart, every piece of it going flying every which direction, and I was like, you know what? It's as cheesy as John Cena. Let's just go with it. That's why I was actually fine with him slamming Ryback through the roof of the ambulance for the finish. I'm like, at least it's different from every other ambulance match we've ever seen where somebody gets knocked unconscious and thrown in the back and the ambulance drives away. At least he put him in the ambulance in a different way. Fine, I can live with that. It didn't ruin the pay-per-view, at least for me.